So for everybody that is here on time, we appreciate you and we appreciate your time. So you might notice that we're actually one panelist short. Unfortunately, Nairi's plane got changed and she's on the plane at the moment. So she won't be joining us today, but no doubt we'll organise something with her later on in the year. So first of all, I would like to welcome our panelists. So welcome Debbie, Mort, Amy, and Louis. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll start officially. So it's an amazing day in the future for everybody that's joined in from the Northern Hemisphere, where we're just discussing about how everything down here spins the other way. Our cyclones, our toilets, our water, our everything. But it's an amazing day in the future. All right, so thank you everybody that is coming in. We're just letting everybody in. All right. Okay, so we're officially going to get going. So welcome everybody. This is the Coaches Momentum Panel. If you are looking to get your coaching business up and running or to get it revived, you are definitely in the right place. So, a lot of coaches find that what they're doing is inconsistent. They feel like they're doing all the right things, they're showing up in the right places, they're posting, they're adding value, yet their inquiries are inconsistent and they're feeling like they are slower than they should be. So, coaches like you often feel like they're struggling to get consistent clients. The challenge is client acquisition, and it's quite often due to a lack of an email list or not actually using their email list. So, their desire is to learn how to improve their business processes. So today we've got some strategies, we've got some support, and we've got some amazing conversations to help you do exactly that. So it's not about more noise, more platforms, and it's definitely not about more hustle. We're going to show you what's actually working to create real momentum in a coaching business. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I am Kathy Smith. I have been a business coach with over 25 years in business and marketing. I help coaches and small business owners to create profitable businesses that they love and that are sustainable for them and their clients. So today is not about creating more overwhelm. It's not about creating overthinking. It's about real conversations about what is actually working out in the market today. So there'll be a lot of ideas that's going to come across the table for you. So don't get overwhelmed. Just grab one thing that sounds like it could work for you and try it and see how you go. So for those of you that weren't early, I've just mentioned that Nari, who it was to be one of our panelists, unfortunately can't join us. She is currently flying. Her flight got changed and she won't be able to make it today. But we have four other amazing panelists, so it's still going to be an amazing conversation. So first off, we have Louis, who is a seasoned business coach and the founder of Iron Bridge, a human AI-powered virtual assistant company that brings 35 years of experience in business building, delegation, and sustainable growth. So welcome, Louis. And
Thank
then
you
we
very
have
much.
we have Amy. Amy brings more than 25 years of marketing, sales, communication experience, and helping organizations to create clarity, connection, and growth through human-centered conversations. And we are definitely going to have some human-centered conversations today. So welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Kathy.
And we have Mort. And Mort is a board certified internal medical physician. Try saying that fast. With 40 years, a 40-year veteran in anger and stress elimination, with 26 books on eliminating anger and stress. So thank you for all your wisdom as well, Mort.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And then to finalise our panel today, we have Debbie, who is a certified speaking professional, speaking to sell and market position expert with 30 years of stage experience, over 1,000 stages, and 11 best-selling books. Welcome, Debbie. And Debbie, you're on mute. So, panelists, if you can unmute yourself, because we all know that we're very good at lip reading. Well, maybe not so good. And for the audio, it's definitely much better to have some sound. All right, so this first question I'm going to ask to all of you one at a time, and then the other questions I'll just pick a couple of you to answer. So the first one, and we will start with Louis, is tell us a little bit about your work and what momentum looks like for coaches and service professionals that you support.
Look, I went into this industry and I do virtual assistants and AI. And the main reason I went into it because I'd built a business worth 35 million, turning over 35 million a year. And I felt I was empty inside. And then I went and got coaches to help me. And I did all these NLP. I became an NLP and a hypnotherapist and timeline therapist. I became all these things. But I realized that a lot of those people just aren't making any money. So unfortunately, there wasn't a business side to a lot of the coaches, So 95% of coaches just literally it's like a hobby. And it's amazing. And I think that they're doing such incredible stuff for the world. And how do we support them with events like this, where we actually just go, let's help you to help more people. So that's really why I do what I do.
Fantastic. And Amy.
So I really love to come in and help people figure out how to message their services and their coaching business once they've had some referrals and repeat business. I think if you're just starting out as a coach, that is the best way to get started out is by working on those referrals, working on those repeats, and working your network. I always say your network is your net worth, which I think is a very popular saying here in the States. I'm not sure if it is over in Australia as well. But really connecting deeply with your community and sharing with people that you know, it's a lot easier to share with them than it is a colder audience. But once you get your business proven there, that's when you're ready to do that deep messaging and marketing work, continuing to grow that email list like Kathy had mentioned. And so that's where I love to come in and really help coaches and consultants figure out.
Fantastic. And Mort?
Well, I'm an anger coach myself, so I help people learn how to eliminate anger rather than manage it for the rest of their lives. And I've had a number of coaches after they hear me speak at a summit or on a networking event, whatever, that have come to me and asked if I would teach them my methodology so they could have that in their skill set. And I found that as coaches, whether you're a business coach or a life coach or any other kind of coach, we're often dealing with people's emotions when we're working with them. Plus, we have our own emotions, that sometimes can get in the way and slow us down. So I'm kind of on a mission to expand and improve emotional intelligence education around the world. And I think coaches play a very important, or can play a very important role in doing that. The more we understand emotions and can help people sort through their emotional difficulties and roadblocks and things like that, I think we'll get that word out there. We'll get that education out there one by one, because the educational institutions are probably going to be way behind in terms of any kind of breakthrough in emotional intelligence education. So I'm really interested in empowering coaches to be better able to work with their clients around emotions like anger, guilt, fear, worry, frustration, and sadness, and others that might come up. And that's what I enjoy doing. And like I said, I think coaches have an important role to play in emotional intelligence around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Debbie.
Well, I didn't start out as a coach. I started out as a paid professional speaker. So based out of the U.S., I rose to the top of the top 3% of women speakers in the world. And then the financial crisis hit in 2008, and they weren't hiring speakers. And so although I was highly paid, I was a highly paid one-trick pony. I didn't want to do the coaching because I was just making enough money going from stage. So I went international, did a lot of work in Australia, all over the world. And I realized paid speaking wasn't, something I could sustain just, speaking all over the world. So I would see speakers get on stage. There were coaches and experts, and I would see them just do an okay job speaking, but boy, they knew how to sell. And I'm like, wow, that is a skill that I need to learn. Then I switched my business, and that was 20 years ago. Switched my business, started doing live events. I've been doing live events my own for 20 years, and now I teach people how to use events and speaking on other people's stages to sell their coaching programs, high ticket coaching programs. And I consistently have been making multiple six figures from my live events in a weekend. So imagine if you're making now $100,000 a year, how about making that in a day or 2 days? And that's what I teach people how to do. And I'm very passionate about that because I did it out of survival. When I was trying to just to start, make my business survive. I mean, it was the scariest time of my entrepreneurial career is when I had to, there was no business and I had, all this expense. And so one of the things I love passionately teaching is if you're a coach, you need to be speaking, right? If you're an author, you need to speak. Not that you have to be a speaker, but you need to be positioning yourself as an expert that gets in front of a room, and you're 4 times more likely to sell being in front of a live room than anything else. And so that's why I'm passionate about teaching that to coaches.
Fantastic, because as we know, people buy when they trust, and having
Yeah.
you in front of them can really shorten that trust cycle. So amazing. All right. So I'm going to ask Amy and Debbie this question. What is the common mistake that you see coaches making that slows down their momentum? So to you, Amy, first.
I think a real common mistake is thinking that you need to do all of the things when it comes to marketing, that you need to be on all of the social channels. You need to be doing your own workshops, your own webinars, your own newsletter. You need to be guesting on podcasts. There are so many different ways that you can market your business. And I really believe at the Joyful Business Revolution, we double down that when you're creating your business, you need to create from that place of joy. So if public speaking scares the crap out of you, don't do it. There's other ways to attract an audience. And so I really think people fall into that should and I have to and I need to do all these things when really there isn't one secret sauce or one perfect way of building a business, but the best way for you to build is to really double down on what brings you joy because you're going to show up stronger, you're going to like doing it, and you're going to not build yourself into a prison. You're going to build yourself a true business that you actually can sustain.
Fantastic. And Debbie?
The number one thing I see, and I work with almost all coaches, that I actually do turn into being speakers. Not that they want to be, not that they're, they mostly hate being speaking on stage. They hate selling, but they go, hey, once they learn it, they make money. So I think your goal first is grow a business that makes money. And we all have to stretch ourselves out of the comfort zone. But the number one thing I see when I start working with a coach is the prices are way too low. They underprice themselves. They undervalue themselves. They give too much time. Instead of giving a 30-minute call, if you haven't closed them in 30 minutes, you haven't mastered closing from a phone, right? So, even using a stage for lead gen and then closing people on a call, it's like 30 minutes you need to close them, but you got to get masterful at that. And then making the decisions for the people and realizing that what they do is instead of doing a 30-minute call, in fact, I just had a client send me this today. She sends out her questionnaire and she's coach and she puts a 60-minute call on there. I'm like, no, remove that. If you haven't closed them in 30 minutes, you're not talking to them longer. These are complimentary calls. And then they just have all over their website, book a call, book a call, book a call. They're giving away their value and their time. So you need to master how to close in 30 minutes from a call, and you need to hand select by application the people you talk to, and you need to be moving towards high ticket sales. It's not about getting more clients and working harder. It's about raising your prices, increasing your value, and knowing how to communicate that value. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see definitely most coaches are making.
Fantastic. And yep, totally agree with that. The amount of coaches that are working for very little, if anything, is scary. So things like this can definitely help to stop that. Okay, so the next question is for Mort and Louis. What is the one strategy that is working right now to create consistent client conversations? So if we go to you, Mort, first.
Well, I think webinars today are, particularly live webinars today, are very useful in getting people to understand what your value is and what they can achieve from working with you. So that is something I think is valuable. I do a lot of podcast appearances. I'm not so sure how much they result in income, and it's kind of a delayed long-term strategy because who knows when the podcast is going to release and when people are going to listen to it. It could be years down the road. But that's sort of building a little bit of a foundation. So I think webinars and getting on stage, as Debbie said, getting on stage in front of a live audience, if you have that opportunity, is probably the number one strategy.
Fantastic. And Louis?
Look, social media is still good. So we follow we got a four-step approach. And the first step is obviously us creating content. We've got to create some sort of content, whether it's us generating it or we're using AI to assist us to generate it, either one. And then we want to reach out to our ideal client. And I think one of the things that's majorly overlooked is every time you comment on somebody's post, it's like a mini post. It's like you creating a mini post. And if you think about your ideal client and you go and look at their posts, some of them have got hundreds of thousands of followers, but you the only comment. So all of those followers are actually looking and they're seeing your comment. So that's the first thing we do is we start commenting on their post. That triggers the algorithm to go, well, Louis commenting on Debbie's post. Debbie and Louis probably know each other. And so it starts showing Debbie more of my stuff. So I've got a VA who actually will just comment on Debbie's posts. And then eventually Debbie will go, who's this Louis guy keeps commenting on my post? She'll come look at mine. As soon as she likes or comments on mine, I'll say, oh, I saw you, I saw you liked my post on delegation. I've got a free guide, 150 things you can delegate. Let me send that to you. And then my VA is building rapport with them saying, well, we've sent you something. We know that they're not going to read it. We know they're not going to read your lead magnet. So we say, we sent you this lead magnet. Can I ask, why did you want a lead magnet on delegation? And they might say, well, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling with that. They build a bit of rapport, and then they book them in for a coffee chat, or they book them into our next masterclass. And so that's working really, really well. This same principle works on, Facebook, LinkedIn, but the concept's exactly the same.
It's starting those conversations, getting into people's awareness and starting to have a conversation. Love that. Okay, so this one we'll go to Debbie and we'll go to Louis again. How important is authenticity in attracting clients?
Me
Louis,
first?
you want to take that first?
Oh, Louis.
I'm sorry, Debbie. Debbie,
Yeah.
you take that first.
Okay. Authenticity is everything. I had to relearn how to be a speaker. Not that it wasn't authentic as a motivational business speaker, but when you are speaking to sell, you have to show your true self. You have to have a conversation, whether you're in front of 200 people or two people. And that's what really sells, just being yourself. And I have a group that I run. And I was telling him, I said, don't over practice this. Like you adjust yourself kind of with higher energy on a stage. I don't know why speakers, especially newer speakers, get on a stage and they become somebody else completely, right? It's just be yourself. People want it. And if you mess up, just go with it. Sometimes it's the best laugh you're going to get, and it's like, I just say things that I go, I can't believe that came out of my mouth, but that's real. And people laugh, because it's like, especially when you do your own events, you get away with anything you want, right? But I think that's why people really, trust me so much because I can't not be authentic. That's just who I am. And so I have to teach other people when they start to just, let's get back to yourself. Like I have one client, she was doing a keynote last week, it was her biggest one. I was there to support her. And before she went on, I just, tapped her on the shoulder and I said, don't forget to be your fun self and just reach out to them and share your love. Always connect your head with your heart because the head is the knowledge. And it's like you get the first couple sentences down of what you're going to say, and then it'll just flow. If you look at them and you share from your heart, you can never fake that authenticity and people feel it. And the biggest compliment anyone will ever say when you're in front of an audience, influencer, whether that's online or live, is you were speaking directly to me. I felt like I know you and you're speaking directly to me. And that's what we're looking for. And that's what's changed in the speaking business because we've gone so much online since the pandemic and now AI, we're getting away from the authenticity. And that's why live events are coming back so strong now. Especially starting, 2025, they start coming back even stronger because you want that human connection. Are you even real? Can I touch you? Can I hug you? I'm in a space, right? So it's everything, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that speaking directly to people makes all the difference. We often say that talking to everybody is talking to nobody. And that's what it's definitely feeling like out there at the moment, that there is just so much noise. So, Louis, what's your take?
Look, we I use AI a lot, okay? And the thing with AI is that you can either get AI slop, if we told her, if we did a Little Red Riding Hood story, if I said to you, all right, ask whatever your AI is to write your Little Red Riding Hood story, they'd come out pretty generic because it doesn't know how old you are, it doesn't know what you like or don't like. Whereas if you said, I really love horror movies, where there's like the guy's got to cut off his own leg to escape out of the cell that's closing in on the walls, and then you ask it to write you the Little Red Riding Hood story. You can imagine that story is going to come out so different to the person who says, I love rainbows and unicorns and the prince riding off into the distance on the white horse. Write me the Little Red Riding Hood. And so I think what a lot of us do is we kind of almost villainize AI, okay, to a large degree, because it doesn't sound exactly like us, but we haven't actually given it a chance. If we got a new employee in our office, we would tell them all about us and what our values are and what our missions are. We'd give them as much information as we possibly could so they could, bring our brand across to our clients. And so the thing that we're finding with AI is obviously the authenticity, like Debbie says, is really key, but you can really use it to dig deep. If you actually go in and you ask, you ask one of your favorite LLMs, what are the top 10 fears, frustrations, dreams, and desires of whatever your specific avatar is? So if you get your specific avatar and you put in what you think their fears and frustrations, dreams, and desires are, and then ask ChatGPT, it will scour the net and then come back with more. Now, once you've got those, it makes it so much more powerful for us to be able to bring our message across to people. So it's not that we're not being authentic. We're just using this as a tool, the same as we're using the computer now as a tool to be able to talk to each other. And so I think that, we either go more AI or we go no AI. There's no sort of halfway. You can either go no kind of AI at all and you just be on a Zoom call and you're literally just authentic and you just no AI, right? And those will probably win in the long run, but I think it'll be a very long time before that'll show results, as opposed to us using a combination of AI now plus our authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very difficult these days to use no AI because it's everywhere, even on Zoom. If we've got an artificial background, if we've got a filter, if we've got any of the tools that Zoom offers, we're using AI. I saw in a group recently that somebody said their family member had started in a hotel and it was no AI. And I thought, that's an interesting ploy because how are you actually going to police that? You're not going to be able to. Even their booking system will have AI in it. So unless you're standing in front of somebody handing them a piece of paper, I think it's very difficult not to use at least some AI. And definitely to your point, Louis, it amplifies. So if you give it garbage, it will continue to give you garbage. And as we know, we don't give our new employees, our junior employees, the keys to the kingdom. We train them and give them some instructions. So yeah. And Debbie, you wanted to add
Oh, yeah, along with AI, those good points there, Louis, is that even social media now, the biggest follower, people that, if we follow are influencers that are just real. Like, we watch some of these videos that are just corny. They're kissing their cat, they're playing with their pets. I mean, but they're just authentic, real people, and we love it. And they grow the biggest following and they're making, so that shows authenticity too. It's just like so many people wait to do that social media video until it's perfect, and perfect doesn't sell. So that's another great look at that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the ones where we're in the garden shed and we're covered in dirt. They're the ones that people relate to the most, not the perfect polished where we've got everything perfect. We've done it 15 times and it's spot on. And of course, the thing is that we need to make sure that our social media graphics reflect who we are today as well, not who we were 15 years ago when we had different hair colors and all of that kind of thing. So making
Okay.
sure that our authenticity is coming through because it is us of today. Yes, Mort.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the importance of authenticity in terms of speaking, in terms of sales, in terms of marketing. But I think there's another place where it comes in, and that is once you have the client and you're actively in a coaching relationship with the client, a lot of times we lose our authenticity in that relationship and we get whatever model we were trained in, we kind of get these boxes or these techniques and we try to fit people into them instead of just sitting across from another human being as a fellow human being and just using your natural curiosity, your natural ability to observe and reflect back, what you see and be truthful with that person. And I remember I went to a week-long workshop 30 years ago that has changed my life in terms of coaching. And it was a bunch of psychiatrists and psychologists, like 30 of them in a room, and I was one of only two people who wasn't a mental health professional. But it was all about, it's called the mastery of psychotherapy. And in the beginning of the week, you could see that these people who were very seasoned mental health professionals, some of them academic, leaders and things like that, they were terrible at doing therapy. They were just techniquing people, and they had each had their own conceptual models, and they were forcing people into their models. And the whole purpose of this workshop was to free them up so that they could literally sit in front of somebody and just let all their models go, use them when they were appropriate, but just have their natural therapeutic humanity interact with another person who's struggling with some issue or some problem, whatever. And it was amazing by the end of the week to see, the leaps and bounds these people made in their ability to just be human with another person and be therapeutic with another person. So we don't realize sometimes we have this natural authenticity when it comes to helping people that doesn't come from whatever concepts we have about coaching that we got from somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we're baby coaches, when we're new coaches, we really do rely on those frameworks. But as we start to gain our confidence, just like Debbie said with speaking on stage, is once we gain our confidence, we've got a few reps under our belt, it is definitely the time to not rely on those specific things quite as much and to bring more of your wisdom and your life experience and your knowledge into that curiosity of coaching. So love that point more. So that brings us to the next question, which will be for you more. How important is relationships and community in building a thriving coaching business?
Well, I think relationships is important to all of us. If you're human, we're a social, species, and so a lot of our lives, the quality of our lives, is determined by our relationships. And this is where emotions come into play here because emotions are flying around all over the place in relationships, and they sometimes can be the end of a relationship if we don't understand our emotions or have a grasp of how to deal with emotions that come up in relationships. And a coaching relationship is a relationship. It's a little different than a social relationship or a marriage or a business relationship, but it's a form of a relationship. And so you have the more you are skilled in relationships in general, the more you understand the dynamics of relationships and particularly the things that destroy them or diminish them. You can avoid those kinds of pitfalls, and then you can do whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever the purpose of that relationship is, or whatever the goal, of it is for each party, can be more likely to manifest.
Fantastic. And Amy, what do you think about relationships and community for thriving businesses?
Well, I think that the only way to thrive in business is a really strong community. And like Mort said, to have a really great relationship game. And I think a lot of times as coaches and consultants and as business owners, we beat ourselves up for maybe not putting enough time into the relationships. We get so wrapped up in all the hustle and everything along those lines. And so, I always suggest keep your list of 25. And those 25 can be collaborators, cheerleaders, maybe your closest best business besties, maybe they're even past clients, and nurture those relationships. Check in with each other, be honest. And I feel like also, a lot of our calendars do help us stay on track and dictate our day. So schedule that time to actually look at your list and say, ask yourself the question, what does Kathy Smith need to hear from me today? And maybe your heart's going to be like, nothing. You just talk to Kathy, or, Kathy's on vacation or something along those lines, and you move on to the next person. And so by at least building into your practice of how to reach out to people and make those connections, I think that is just super duper key into a successful business, because I feel like your next best client is probably going to come from someone in your network. And so, how can you best stay top of mind to those 25 people that mean the most to you? And also revisit that list. The same 25 people do not need to stay on that list year after year after year. Maybe, maybe more comes off for a little while because we're not connecting as much, and that's okay as well. So, but I think to be practical about it and how to build it into your workflow and figuring that out for you is really, really important, because as humans, we get so wrapped up in creating new relationships, cultivating new clients, showing up for our clients, that we do need to take that pause to purposefully connect and build those relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And being top of mind, because how often have you been talking to somebody and they've said, oh, I've just recommended this great speaker. Oh, you're a great speaker. Whoops, forgot about you. And
Right? Exactly.
it happens so often. So definitely top of mind is very important. Okay. So, Debbie, we'll throw this one to you. So, looking back on your business journey, what's the one lesson that you found has made the biggest difference in your business?
Kathy, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19. I've never applied for a job. I have to spell it because it's that terrifying to me. I've never even filled out an application. A true entrepreneur at heart. Many, many lessons. So I'm going to stick to one that's more current, that I know that the coaches here can really, say, just do these two things. It shifted my business when I wanted, because for many years I was a marketing expert, and then I shifted to teaching and speaking to sell. I kind of save that for people, right? But now I do that full time. And so one of the things that shifted my business to, probably triple, quadruple my income over the last few years, even was a conversation, just like I would talk to Lewis or Amy or Mort, and we got together and it'd say just joint venture partners talking, right? And somebody said to me, "What is your brilliance?" Because I was getting bored. Like I'm doing the same thing over and over. So some of you coaches may say, "I've been doing this over and over. Yeah, I'm really good at it, but it's kind of boring to me." Like I would create brand foundations. I just do it so easy. It's great. But it was very kind of cookie cutter and systemized. And I'm like, okay, it's not challenging. And so he said, "What is your brilliance?" I said, "My brilliance is speaking and selling all over the world, 28 countries on stages, every kind of audience. And even when I didn't have a database, putting events together and selling from stage." He goes, "Well, why are you not teaching that full time?" I'm like hit me in the head. Why am I teaching that full time? It was like somebody else has to say that. So you have to know, what is your absolute brilliance? Is that what you're teaching, or are you just trying to follow the coaching model? Like everybody's teaching this. This is a trend. What is your brilliance? Everybody has a brilliance based on your experiences, based on what knowledge you have. What is the thing that you could share for the most ideal person? Your brilliance. Second was, he goes, "Okay, you're going back to live events." This was during the pandemic. "You're going back to live events." He goes, "What price programs are you going to offer?" I said, "Well, typically my programs, at that time, it was, 25,000 for my full year program." He goes, "Well, why don't you have $100,000 program?" So I sat there with like, Maggie, I'll say this to you because I see your face, right? What if I say, "Why, Maggie, why don't you have $100,000 program?" You'd have that face like, well, what would I put in $100,000 program to one person, right? And so the first thing I thought in my head, which everybody does, they'll cut it. Like first, like, I don't even know what to do with it. I can't offer that. So I cut it in half in my head. Well, maybe I come with a 50. That's doubling it, right? And then after that conversation, I'm like, well, why don't I have $100,000 program? And he goes, "Just throw it out. You don't have to sell it. You just have to throw it out with your ideal client in mind and see if somebody buys it." And so I sat there and I wrote everything. I was so excited. So when my event came up, I made the offer. No PowerPoints, no pre-planned stuff, no forms to fill out. It's by application only. This is not for everybody. This is a partner program. I'll launch you on speaking stages. I get you booked, host your event with you. I mean, all the stuff, right? And I just said, here's all of it. And I said, and you have to apply, and I'm going to be very hand selective because at this event today, I'm only picking one person. 4 people applied. It was the easiest sale I ever made. I got to select the clients they wanted to take. It was the easiest sale I ever made. So, 2 things here. Only share your brilliance, which you're absolutely brilliant at, and raise your prices higher than you think. At least try a throwout offer. If you don't try it, you'll never know. And again, no PowerPoints, no nothing. Just you have to know when you do the throwout, who is your ideal client? Like you might have that client now, Maggie, where you go, hey, my client Susie, if I threw this out, this is what she'd really want. Like, forget about the number, right? And just say she could partner with you in some way, or you could launch her in a big way, or whatever that was, and throw it out and see if it sticks. That was a biggest aha over the last few years for me.
Fantastic. And they always used to say that you had 3 offers. You had the bottom offer, you have the middle offer, which everybody would take, and then you have that high ticket offer so that people can choose. And you do get a certain percentage of VIPs. So that's taking it to the next level. So absolutely love that. Louis, what do you think?
These are all amazing. I think that for a lot of coaches that are listening or starting out here, one of the biggest things is that they don't understand their value and they don't actually understand what their time is worth yet. And so a lot of people have come from corporate and they had a job and they knew what they were going to get paid every week and they knew what was expected of them. And then they've done a coaching program or something, and now they've come into the world and they're like, well, how much do I charge? And they give so much stuff away for free. But the other thing that they do is they're doing lots of tasks that they really should not be touching. And so I've got a super basic little tool that I use. And literally what we do is we just say, if you went and got the job that Debbie's scared of, okay, you'd probably work, maximum 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. So that's about 2,000 hours. Okay. So then what I do is I say, take how much you want to earn next year as a coach. Let's say it's, $100,000. Well, let's say it's $200,000. And what we do is we divide that by the 2,000 hours. That's literally how many hours you've got to do it. Now, this is not necessary. You don't want to be selling time for money. You want to be selling outcomes like Debbie's doing. But we do still need to work out what our time is worth. So if we took how much we want to earn, 200,000, we divide it by 2,000, that would give us a figure of $100. Now, what we need to do is we need to actually think about that $100. And what I do is I actually write it down on a post-it note. This is the simplest tool you're ever going to get. You write that figure down on a post-it note. Okay. And the reality is, how many of us want to work 40 hours, 50 weeks a year doing coaching? Probably not very many of us. So what we would do is we would just double the figure. So we double the figure, we'd write down $200 an hour. And now what you do is you write it on a post-it note and you stick it somewhere super visible. And now whenever you're doing anything, look up at the post-it note. And I've got this book, okay, and I'm trying to just adjust it because it's slightly off course. And I'm on Canva and I've spent about an hour on Canva trying to adjust it. And I look up at this post-it note and I go, would I pay somebody $200 an hour to adjust this book for me on Canva? And the answer is, hell no, there's no way I would do that. And then I go, well, why am I doing it? Why haven't I got an AI that's doing it, or a virtual assistant, or a virtual assistant that's trained in AI? So this little post-it note, and you start off with this post-it note, it might be $50. And I know that for me, eventually, you had this post-it note, it was in thousands of dollars. And you're looking at it and you're going, the printer's broken, and you're going, would I pay somebody $2,000 to fix it? No, IT guy, come and fix it, right? Because you start understanding what your time is worth. And I think that's such an important tool for all of us, especially for coaches, because Lots of coaches have gone in because we want to help people and we feel, and I mean, I came from this as well. Like if I've helped Mort and then I ask Mort for money, have I really helped Mort? Because now it's like a business transaction. It's not like I've helped him. And so it's getting over that mindset. And this definitely helps you to be able to realize that it's costing me to help Mort. And so I should be remunerated for doing it. So I think working out what your time is worth, probably one of the most important things you can do.
Absolutely. And as coaches, we have coach hearts and we do want to be able to give back and do all of that sort of thing. So being highly paid means that you can do exactly that. You can then choose to do pro bono work, or you can choose to give a percentage to certain charities, or you can choose to do what it is that you want to give back. And I think that's sometimes where we get caught up in. Even Mother Teresa, she got paid. So she had a very large organization that made a lot of money, and she also did a lot of good. So it is a case of being paid, being well paid. So I think that drawing this part of our momentum panel to a close, it's very important that we are making sure that our prices aren't too low and that we are raising them, that we are being ourselves, speaking directly of who you are and not trying to be anybody else. I love Marie Forleo that she says, don't be anybody else because they're already taken, so you don't want to be a bad imitation. So probably butchered that, but you get the message. And Debbie, I love your what is your brilliance and sell your brilliance. And then Amy with choose the marketing that works for you because there's so many ways to market, but trying to do everything and something that's out of your comfort zone and you won't do, that really is just a recipe to get you stuck and not get you moving. The list of 25, making sure that you're scheduling and looking at those people and keeping top of mind is really, really important. And more live webinars. I mean, they're such a low barrier of entry, and quite often it's just practice. So if that fits into your skill set, that's an amazing way to do it. And that authenticity piece about not only being you in your marketing, but also being you in your coaching and your service delivering, and making sure that you're not just parroting the tools that you've learnt is really, really important. And Louis, to bring that all home is, yeah, not doing those tasks that you shouldn't be doing. Quite often we look at things and go, oh, it'd be quicker if I did it. Yeah, but is it going to be quicker if you did it 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times? Suddenly that all starts to multiply up, and whether that be $50 or $2,000, it definitely adds up very quickly. And reaching out to your ideal client and commenting so that people can actually see you and helping to use some of that audience and that lift that you can get by being helpful and being out there chatting to people. And of course, the caveat on that is not trying to sell your stuff on somebody else's audience and being that icky salesman that we sometimes see people doing, which I'm sure is not what you meant at all, Louis, but we do see it out there in the real world, which unfortunately is not a good look. So there's ways and means to do it, of course. So we've had some amazing conversations today. We've had some amazing tips. So don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to do everything. Just pick the one thing that really stood out for you. So remember that one action, one shift. And what is it that you can put in your diary to do this week? Is it what Amy said about the 25 list of 25? Or is it more about Debbie's brilliance or Louis commenting or more remembering to be authentically you, not only just in your marketing, but your coaching as well? So we've had an amazing amount of momentum, visibility, and client connection. And there's some great tips on that. And that's quite often where people get stuck. So, from these ideas, there's lots of things you can do. But many coaches, they find it difficult to get consistent client flow. They're not really sure about what to focus on and then how to create those conversations with the right people so that they do turn into paying clients And as Debbie mentioned, not just spending hours and hours giving away free value. So, what is it that you need to be doing to turn those conversations into paying clients? And especially if you're posting consistently and you don't seem to be getting anywhere. And you definitely do not need to be cold DMing anybody and feeling irky, especially when it's not for you. So, you might have been coaching for years and you're still finding that your income is inconsistent, or you might be fairly new to it. These things can help everybody. So that's why I'd like to invite you to the next step, which is my free 90-minute workshop, which is called the 3 Keys to Getting Consistent Coaching Clients. It's how to turn your coaching skills into a business that really works for you without cold DMing, without a huge audience, and without waiting to feel like everything is ready and perfectly in line. So during this workshop, we're going to talk about 3 things, hence the name. The rule of one. And this is where you get really clear on who you're talking to, what your message is, and the problem that you solve to help people understand exactly what you do. Because speaking to everybody is speaking to no one, and it makes it very difficult for people to be able to refer you or to think that you're my person. The second thing is the client conversation code, because clients are out there and you need to be posting content. But sometimes when you're just posting it for the sake of posting, it doesn't work. So at some point, this needs to turn into conversations, and we will look at how to create those conversations without feeling pushy, without feeling salesy, and without turning you into something that we're not. Because as we've spoken today, it's really important about being authentically you. And the third thing is the consistent client flow. And this is where we bring all the pieces back together. And so you don't have to start from scratch every month, not knowing where the clients are coming from, not knowing what you're going to do. You don't need a huge audience. You don't have to be posting every single day on social media, feeling like you're on tap 24/7. And you definitely don't need to be cold DMing strangers. What you do need is a clear way to turn what you're already doing into more opportunities for the right people to work with you. So, if some of the conversations today have got you thinking about what is your next step, this would be the perfect next step. So, coming to my workshop next week. So, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's Tuesday, the 25th of August. And if you're down here in the Southern Hemisphere, it's Thursday, the 26th of August. One event, 2 time zones to spread it through everybody. It's free and it's live. And in 90 minutes, we'll work together to get these 3 keys organized for you. And I'd love to see you there. We're just going to drop that in the chat for the link to register. And it's kathysmith.com.au/roadmap. Oh, sorry, /workshop. Got roadmap in my brain because that's my program is the Coaches Marketing Roadmap. So it's kathysmith.com.au /workshop. And we're just going to tap into the brilliance of our amazing panelists just one more time. So, Louis, where do you see coaches losing energy to grow their businesses?
I think it's like what Amy said before. It's when we're doing stuff that we don't like doing. We all know the stuff that drains us. So in our business, there's stuff that drains us and there's stuff that energizes us. And the idea is to try and do more stuff that energizes you and get people to do the stuff that drains you. So that's one of the main things. And then I think one of the other ones is we all suffer from a thing that we call productive procrastination. Okay, where we need to do something, but we do a whole lot of other stuff which is productive, but it's procrastinating from what we should be doing. So today you may be listening to this podcast, and I mean this what's it, webinar. You may be listening to this webinar, and that's amazing, but actually in the back of your mind you may be going, I really need to actually make 3 or 4 calls to customers. or I really need to be invoicing somebody, or I really need to be doing something else. And so it's really just being aware of what are those things, what are the things that that would move our business forward. And so coming to places like this and getting all this advice is phenomenal, but really just make sure you implement something from today.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes we do get in that busy, busy trap where we're doing a lot of learning and not implementing. So, yeah, absolutely. Amy, what helps coaches to get their message to make it so it feels clearer and more connected so people will take action?
Yeah, I would say with messaging work, one of the best ways to get clear is in conversation. And so try to be in conversation again with people who can give you feedback. Look at their verbal cues when you make your introduction statement in a room. See whose ears perk up. See how the response is. And so when you're in conversation with somebody and practicing and using your messaging, it's not just getting the messaging out and word vomiting it. It's you've got to pay attention to your surroundings and also don't beat yourself up if you're not able to do it alone. It really is, I think some of the best messaging comes from someone listening to you and pulling out what they hear in between the lines to really create that deeper connection. But I think the last and the biggest thing, Kathy, is when people create their messaging, they tend to try to talk to a wide audience. And I think Debbie kind of alluded to this earlier. Speak to one heart. Get really, really clear, speak to one heart. And I promise you, when you're speaking to that one person, that one ideal client, the one best situation that you want to be working with, there's someone who's going to be feeling you and be like, well, I don't do this or I'm not this. Can you help me too? That's when you know your messaging is landing really, really well.
Yes, I think that's really important. I call it the dartboard. If you're aiming at the middle of the dartboard and you're a little off, you'll go around the side. But if you aim at the edge of the dartboard because you want to cover the whole dartboard, you're just going to totally miss it. So, yeah,
Exactly.
love that. All right, Mort, how can coaches better understand and support their clients through dealing with those emotions, that stress and potentially anger?
Well, I think one of the big things is when we're coaching somebody in anything is you've got to understand the fundamental nature of the thing or the problem that you're dealing with. And if you're off the mark in your understanding of what the roots of those problems are, it's going to be hard to really help people with it. So one of the big breakthroughs that I had like 40 years ago that gave me the ability to coach other people and to resolve my own anger issues and other emotional issues that I had is realizing that, like, for example, with anger, anger isn't caused by other people. What they do, what they don't do, what they say, what they don't say. Anger's, all of our emotions are being caused by our brains in response to things that people do. But it's invisible what our brain is doing. So we tend to blame our emotions on the behavior of other people because we see their behavior and we feel the emotion. It looks like that's all it's involved. But actually, the most important thing is what's going on in our brain that's invisible. So you got to understand, number one, that it's not other people that's causing you to have emotional, reactions. It's yourself and specifically your brain. And then you've got to dig in and try and find out, well, what is my brain doing? How's it doing that? How does my brain make me angry? And what's it do differently to make me anxious? And what does it do differently to make me feel guilty? And if you understand those processes, how your brain gets you to look at things and think about things in certain ways that create the emotion, then you can usually step in and ask some reasonable questions. Is what my brain's telling me true? Is this piece true? Is that piece true? What did my brain miss? What did it get wrong? What is it hiding from me? You start to see that a lot of the viewpoints that we have that cause our emotions are incomplete or not completely accurate. So that was the big breakthrough for me is stop blaming other people for my emotions and realize it's coming from me. And then digging in, doing the work to find out exactly where it's coming from in me and how it's being manufactured. And when you know that, then you got your hands on the controls.
Fantastic. And yes, I think it's definitely a skill to realize that a lot of these things, most of these things, about the way we think about it. And it's definitely about the way our brains interpret things. So, love that piece of work too. And Debbie, how do you see coaches using speaking and authority positioning to create more opportunities?
It's just you're positioning yourself as an influencer, as an expert. If you're a coach, you're an expert. You're an expert in something. And when you can communicate that in a way that's really brilliant to your audience, and they're gonna, one of the things I teach my coaches is get some time on stage, whether that's 10 minutes, whether that's on a panel, whatever, just get used to being, in front of people. And then always have a call to action. So if you have a table there, move people over to your table, invite them to sign up for a short form to do a complimentary call. But again, tell them you're going to limit that, hand select the people you want, so you get the warm leads out of the room. So that's how you're using speakers. You pull the warm leads out of the room, then move them to the call and get masterful at closing them on the call. And one of the other things that you mentioned about growing and momentum, I've got to share this piece because I see this as one of the biggest things with coaches is that they take too many bad clients. And when you're a new coach, if you're listening to this now and you're a new coach and you got a bad client, the ones that are broke, the ones that are hard to work with, the ones that aren't coachable, the ones that we don't even want to get on the phone and talk to, you got to be able to say goodbye. And I say bless and release. When it's not a fit, I bless and release. I often bless and release before I start with people when I can figure, if they're not the right fit. But sometimes I have to bless and release. I wish them well. You can only take them so far. But if they're not coachable, you're beating yourself up. You're going to get burned out in this business. And I've had coaches say, well, I can't raise my prices because I need to help all these people and they can only afford this. You don't create a coaching business for putting together your prices for the people that can afford you that have less money. You are an expert at what you do. You've invested in your coaching, your certifications, all the time and wisdom you have. You deserve to be positioned as an expert and you deserve real good clients. Let all the new people, the new coaches that don't have it figured out yet, let them take them because nobody wants them. But it seems like they find you. Isn't that crazy? It's like especially the newer coaches, and the lower price point you are, you're going to get the worst clients. They will find you, they will beat you up with working you too hard, and they won't do the work, and you won't get the best case study. So just stop doing it.
Absolutely. And I mean, the car industry's a perfect example of that, isn't it? We all may want a Mercedes, but if we can't afford it, that they're not going to drop the price just so that we can get that car. So
Right,
I think,
increase your value. Yeah, they have a value. It's luxury. It's like build your value up. Don't decrease your price. Most definitely.
indeed, and we're not for everybody. So that's really important. So it all brings it back to what we were talking about, being authentic and making sure that you know who your people are. So that is very, very important. So just to close this all up, as we want to make sure that we are honouring everybody's time. So I'm just going to hit the screen share here for a second and show you just three quick things before we disappear, if I can make it work. There we go. Okay, so we've got the three keys to getting clients next week. So it's got the times on it for your particular time zone, Tuesday in the Northern Hemisphere or Wednesday in the Southern Hemisphere. And then our guests have been really very generous with their time, but they're also going to give you a gift. But before they do, I'm just going to let you know what my gift for you is for coming to visit us today. And we've been talking about email lists. And has yours gone quiet, or are you not using it the way you potentially should? So I've got a little gift for you, which is a 10-minute inbox reviver, a simple way to restart those conversations that you already have those people in your world. They've already had some connection with you and they already like you. So stop ignoring them and make sure that you are actually contacting them and showing them the value that you do have. And our wonderful people have got a gift for you as well. So that will be at kathysmith.com.au/gifts So if you would like to go and grab the amazing things that our panelists has given, do that. And if you'd like to know more about me or you'd like to chat more with me, you can also make a booking there as well. So it's kathysmith.com.au/bookings. So just to finish us off, as we are a couple of minutes over time, is there anything that we should have said that we haven't said, panelists? Louis busting. Come on, Louis. What is it that you'd like to tell us?
Look, I think as a coach, I mean, it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. And sometimes it feels really hard, but just remember, why you're doing it. And really, we most of us are doing this to help the world and to change the world and to make it a better place for our kids and for the future. And when it gets a bit tight, just you've got to go back to why are we doing this?
I think that's really, really important, is making sure that we do know our why. So join me, everybody, in giving a big round of applause to our panelists. We thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for the gifts that you have shared. And we look forward to continuing this conversation out in the big wide world.